All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your seat, we'd like to call the meeting to order. Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Thank you. In terms of announcements and executive session report, the public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. There was an executive session held prior to this evening's meeting involving discussions on personnel matter regarding an administrative employee, discussions on a student matter, and discussions on a potential of litigation. Thank you. Recognitions of guests and schedules, Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no guests or scheduled speakers this evening.
All right, moving right along, let's move into the reports. The financial report, Mike?
There was no meeting of the Finance Committee for this month.
Moving right along, is anybody from the Property Committee here?
There was no property meeting, committee meeting held this month.
Same true for the education?
Exactly.
Okay. We're going to move right through these. There was the Policy Committee.
Yeah, of course I have one.
Yes, the Policy Committee did meet in June and in July. Our meeting was held June 21st at 6:30, was continued on to July 7th at 6:30 also. We had multiple policies that we discussed and moved to a first reading. Of note, the policies that we have that we are still in discussions on are policies relating to food allergies and anaphylaxis and possession and use of inhalers, which we are working with the school nursing staff to tighten those policies up to make sure that they're in line with our practices. We're also looking at some policies regarding searches of student property. We had courtesy of the floor. We had Ashley Wilkerson, who presented the committee with some very useful information regarding allergy management in the schools and provided us with some resources that we can use in developing the policy moving forward. And the second part of the meeting adjourned at 8:43. That's my report.
Thank you, and as Mike so kindly pointed out to me, I forgot to do the attendance. All board members are present except for Herb Roth and Scott Dorn. Thank you. Now moving on to the IU.
No report.
Thank you. Monco Tech.
There was no meeting in July.
All right, and Dr. Zerbe, the superintendent's report.
I do have a report. As a follow-up to our work session meeting held last Tuesday, I would like the board and the public to be informed that much progress has been made with respect to the work on the Transportation Improvement Plan and preparing for the start of the next school year. As you may recall, our consultant outlined the results of our bus routing study and proposed that there are not only efficiencies to gain in terms of routes, buses, and costs, but opportunities to reduce total ride time and to improve the ridership experience. At last Tuesday's meetings, there was much comment on having the drivers involved in testing of the proposed route changes. I'm happy to say that we've received excellent cooperation from First Student Management and their drivers and have been out testing routes since Thursday of last week. At this point, the feedback from drivers has been very helpful. I can tell you that not all the routes that were computer generated had all the necessary detail, and the drivers have come back with many thoughtful and important pieces of information to help us. At this point, we plan to continue the testing of the routes with the help of the drivers and making appropriate modifications to the routes and times in order to best prepare for the 2016-17 school term. I would like to say thank you to First Student and the drivers for their assistance, and that I appreciate their cooperation and hope that we continue this dialogue going forward. In addition to the testing of the routes, Mr. Schock, our consultant, will be gathering the data that was requested by the board in terms of number of students and their ride times. While overall the information suggests that ride times will decrease by approximately 25%, I know that the information the board is seeking will be valuable. We plan to come back to the board with an update on the routes and requested data at the August 16th, 2016 work session. In terms of other progress in the area of transportation, a communication will be distributed this week from my office informing parents that changes to routes and buses are likely to occur and that their official bus information for their children will be mailed August 19th. I plan to outline some of the specific things that we are planning to include at the start of the school year, including a call center and driver route testing. We are planning to have dry runs for all drivers on August 23rd and 24th with necessary adjustments and any additional parental communications to follow those 2 days. We will be going live with a call center on August 22nd, and we do expect that there will be, like in any given year, changes to routes and times up into the first couple days of school. Our goal is making sure that in collaboration with First Student Management and their drivers, that we focus on cooperation and communication to restore the confidence of our families and maintain a safe and efficient operation. In other summer news, the technology department is busy preparing for the one-on-one technology initiative, and they plan to hold information sessions in August for parents and students. Look for a communication coming out of Mr. Sosnovic's office and Ms. Landis' office this week. I want you to know that many teachers have been in during the summer preparing for the next school term. We have a full contingency of administrators on staff at the building level since filling the Arcola and Woodland principal positions. I've met with both principals on several occasions, and they are planning various opportunities to meet and greet so as to provide parents the needed face-to-face time during these transitions. I want you to know that I'm pleased with Ms. Mangano and Ms. Euchre's work to date and believe that they will be an excellent additions to our already strong administrative team. We remain focused on filling several other professional and administrative positions that are currently open, and we will provide the board a summary of those final hires and moves closer to the completion of that process. Our support staff is working hard to get everything ready for the start and the return of teachers and students, and I want to thank them for their commitment to the district. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Before we move on to public comment, I'd just like to thank the bus drivers that have participated in helping us fine-tune and put some practical perspective measures on those bus route changes. They'll help us make more informed decisions as we move forward. Now we're open to the public comment on the board action items. Is there any?
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you remember from last week, my name's Charles Falco, live in the district 30-some years, worked for First Student, and did work for Metacton as a bus driver for 9 years. I am one of the gentlemen, and to the other drivers and men and ladies that have helped us do these routes and continue to do so with help from Bob Schock, too. He's very cooperative, let me say that about him. And I do appreciate the recognition of the board for the driver's sake who are doing this, because it does get awfully hot in them buses come around noon, you know, so especially when you're doing 5-6 straight hours of driving. I do want to say one thing, though. I know we put out money in this district for Bus Boss. I am here to say it stinks. Every route I have done, and I have done 16 routes to date, and I'm going to do another 5 tomorrow, okay? It sends you on wrong roads. It sends you on roads you cannot go on. It has wrong turns. It has stops in wrong spots. I would definitely suggest to the board that they contact Bus Boss and say, yo, your program needs to be updated for this district. There's places our buses cannot go. And you know how some of these roads are in Worcester. I'll give you just one quick for instance. Down on Paulings Road, there's a road called Sullivan, right before the bridge. You know what it is? It's a dirt road. And it's literally as narrow as a golf cart. And they had me making a left turn onto that road. And I said, of course, I couldn't do it, so it was as simple as that. I had to find another way. They can't account for road closures, which we do, which drivers usually, when they do their dry runs, will reroute the route to sit there and help. But we are finding that we are running on some runs. Like the first run I did was 20 to 25 minutes later than the time they gave. And this is without, the one thing I want to make clear to you is, we're driving right now without traffic. And we're trying very hard to make long enough stops to allow for, and we're marking on every sheet where the traffic will be at, so forth and so on. They're running the runs awfully tight. For instance, they have us getting into a lot of the grade schools at 8:54. We let out at 8:55. That's not allotting us any time for traffic or situations that develop on roads. I'm saying now that if they keep to these tight time schedules, you're probably going to run into some issues with getting the buses to schools on time. So I just want you to be aware of that. It seems to what we're finding out. But I do, again, want to thank you for recognizing the drivers in particular, and First Student for the help. Amy's been fantastic, and all her office staff, and we've, I think up to date, we've done an excellent job. The people that have helped us and want to continue to do so you can get a proper picture of what we're dealing with for our kids. Because again, I'll say, my grandkids are going to these schools. I want them safe. So thank you again.
Thanks for taking the time to share that with us. And if you have any more insights that come up, please come back to me and share that with us. We really appreciate it.
John Andrews, Lower Providence. One voting item on the agenda this evening is $7,000 for the architect who delivered a study of building conditions and fix-up needs back in April. And I think we should hold off on bringing them back in to give us more information until we get some kind of a report out of the administration as to the district's first view of that document. I think we may go down the wrong track if we rely totally on consultants, where we have a facilities director, et cetera, already in the district. And relative to the issues with Bus Boss that the previous gentleman spoke of, that greatly disturbs me, that the drivers are finding what I would call enormous problems. So I think, somehow we need to put more effort into that if we want to have a successful start to the school year rather than an unsuccessful one. And I looked at I downloaded the presentation from last week, and one of the charts, the scattergrams that was skipped over very rapidly, was for busing to the visitation school. And one of those bus runs is a 70-minute duration, and that, I find that unacceptable when we went to great lengths to eliminate 70-minute runs for our own schools. I don't think that speaks well of our fairness. And there are comments on those scattergrams about adding 3 buses, and I think that, last week I said that I don't think we should be adding 3 buses, and in most of those instances, if you just add 1 bus, that it solves a lot of the claimed issues. So adding back 3 buses to those scattergrams, presuming that the Bus Boss scheduling of things is correct, isn't the way to go. Now, if Bus Boss has great problems, you may have to add back 6 buses. So, I think that needs to be settled on, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Candy Alaba, Eagleville. I mean, I'm aware that our business manager is no longer here, but since we have a list of bills you're voting on, I think it would be prudent that the assistant business manager be present at the school board meetings to answer any questions that have to do with the business office. I mean, I understand Dr. Zerby can answer the questions, but since the bills are paid out of the business office, it should be represented either by, I think you appointed a temporary business manager to take Mr. Whitler's place, Danielle, I don't remember her last name, or maybe the treasurer. Someone should be here to be able to answer any question pertaining to the list of bills. I noticed on tonight's agenda, there's a settlement agreement that the school district is entering into, which I'm really glad to see you're going to vote on it, but what is the dollar amount? That is what the public needs to know, how much this is going to cost the school district, if there is a dollar amount. And I'm not aware if this was a topic of discussion in an executive session, because I don't recall it ever being announced that this lawsuit was the topic of discussion. And under the Sunshine Laws, it has to be announced to the public. But I think, it's great to see that there's going to be a public vote on lawsuits, which should have been done all along. But you need to also include the amount, if there is one, because the taxpayers are paying this. And also, if you're going to vote tonight on $7,600, shouldn't that have been a topic of discussion last week? I mean, a lot of these topics should have been discussed in work sessions before you vote on them tonight, instead of say, this is what we're going to vote on, so the public has at least a week to digest what actions the board is going to take. So I think, because I went back and compared the two agendas, and there's a lot of items added this week that should have been discussed last week, and if it's not time sensitive, discuss it next month. But it should be open discussion before you vote on spending any money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments related to the board action items? Okay. Item number 1 is approve the board meeting minutes of the work session held on June 21st and the regular board meeting held on June 28th. May I have a motion to approve? Second? All those in favor? Passes. Next on there is the fiscal items. Dr. Zerby.
For your approval this evening are the list of bills and the treasurer's report under item 9.
All right. May I have a motion to approve? Second? All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Personnel items. Dr. Zerby.
On the agenda this evening, there's several personnel items. I do want to bring your attention to the professional staff item that's listed under A10A1. In accordance with the board's vote on June 28, 2016, to eliminate one secondary English teaching position at Methacton High School, approve the non-renewal of contract for temporary professional employee Sarah Lewandowski, effective July 27, 2016. This was discussed. It was not on the agenda for the work session, and it was a discussion near the end of the work session, and it was omitted in error, and I thank the board member for bringing it up, and we added it for the agenda here for this evening. The rest of the items are on the agenda: resignations professional, resignations classified. There is one change of status classified, 4 supplemental contracts for your approval, 1 approval of a volunteer list, community education approval, and 2 advisements.
Does anybody want to take any of the items individually?
I just wanted to point out, I just checked, there is no list of volunteers attached, so just to make it, I guess. There's no list attached, so I don't know if there was no list this month, but.
It wasn't on the work session.
Either.
There was no.
So then what I recommend is that we approve, we don't include that as an item for action. It's letter N1 under volunteers.
So let's exclude that.
So all items under 10 except for item N.
Okay. So may I have a motion to approve all the personnel items excluding item Do I have a second? All those in favor? Okay. Curriculum, Dr. Katona's not here. Do you have any? Okay. Policy, Dr. Zerbe?
On the agenda this evening, there are 4 policies for first reading, and there are 5 policies for second reading. You will be taking action this evening on items 12B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's policy 115, policy 208, 211, 219, and 609.
May I have a motion for that? Is there a second? Any discussion on the policies? Okay.
Chris, I'm sorry, I thought you said yes. The handbooks that Dr. Zerbe, I think you mentioned some type of communication to the community related to the update to the handbooks. Is that going to be part of a blast or something from a perspective of, I thought you had mentioned something before. Right?
Yeah, I mentioned that, I believe, at the work session, that we are, while this is first reading for the handbooks, there is still work being done by our building principals, led by our Director of Community Information, Ms. Lynch. So I want you to be aware that between this first reading of the handbooks and the August second reading, there will be some significant changes, because most of the work will be done between those times. And if in the instance that we don't complete all the changes, and there are substantial changes that actually change the rule per se, we would then communicate those specifically to the parents and the students when the changes occur. But I can't tell you exactly how we would do that until we get to the point where we're at the second reading, because if it's a substantial amount, we may do it in chunks going through. So I want to keep it organized and keep it consistent so that we're not communicating every week about a new change. So I will know better once we get to a closer date to the August voting meeting.
Yeah, I guess my only point was to make sure that we have some type of communication plan around it to the community, since it is probably one of the more significant policies that we have that people need to be aware of.
Okay, any other comment? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to other items, Dr. Zerbe?
Under other, there are no gifts or donations or trips. Under 13C, a settlement agreement, recommending that you approve the settlement agreement between student ID 530730143 and Methacton School District. Under 13D, Facilities Prioritization Services, approve the additional facilities prioritization services by AEM Architects in the amount of $7,600 with deliverables as per attached contract addendum. And then under 13E, we have the instructional calendar revision. Just some explanation behind this, because this is also a new item that wasn't on your work session agenda. We were, the class of 2017 had determined a location to hold their prom. They were informed recently that due to construction of that facility, that they would not be able to hold the prom at that location. Therefore, the committee that organizes this had to find an alternate location. They did find an alternate location. That alternate location is at Presidential Caterers, and they have the date of April 21st available, not April 28th. And therefore, the calendar change is the recommendation for the prom date change, which would affect professional development and work in the high school only, and affect obviously those attending the prom as well as the staff in the high school building. So it's a minor change. It doesn't substantially change our number of days in attendance, etc., but it is one that requires your approval, and we're asking for that this evening. And that ends the items under other.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement, facilities prioritization services, the 2016-2017 revised instructional calendar as presented?
Hey, Chris, could
Yeah.
you pull out D separately, please?
D, yes. Okay. So, can I have the approval for all those items that I just said, except for the facilities prioritization services?
So you want the motion?
Yeah, the motion. Second? Comment? Yeah, Jim.
Under settlement agreement, as far as that, Mrs. Alba brought up about the executive session, can we announce that a little cleaner as far as the executive session, or have Frank explain it?
Yeah, we did mention it as a discussion on a student matter, and so there is more detail. Frank, you want to share a little bit more detail?
Yeah, the law is, the law is, and generally speaking, you're absolutely right that the board is required to announce certain things, and one of those things, obviously, is matters of litigation when those things are discussed in executive session. The exception to that, of course, is when there is a lawful privilege or confidentiality that's associated with a particular matter, and as you may know, that is true with respect to student matters. So both of those matters are set forth as exceptions to the Sunshine Law in the executive session provision. Mr. Boardman was correct in using the lawful privilege exception. He mentioned that we had a discussion in executive session with respect to a student matter, which of course they all carry that lawful privilege with them. If you wanted to give another reason for us to be able to be in executive session, it may be a matter of litigation as well, but we can't get into the specifics with respect to that we're required to with other matters of litigation because of that lawful privilege that exists with respect to the student. So while you're right, there's an exception to what you said, and Mr. Boardman acted properly with respect to that matter.
That's my brief. Okay.
I have a pretty good idea about the Sunshine Law, Mr. Boardman knows that.
That's correct.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, so we're going to we're going up for the approval of all those except D. We're going to do that one separately. Now, all those in favor? Okay, so let's move on to D. So may I have a motion to approve the facilities prioritization services as presented? Second? Comment?
Yeah, first I just wanted to make one comment, again, to Ms. Alba. The reason this wasn't on the work session, the letter dated and attached tonight is July 22nd, so it occurred post the work session, so that's why you'll see it on the agenda for this evening. But in terms of comments to the need for this, I'm wondering if Dr. Zerbe can, provide a little bit more clarity why we need this. We went with AEM to provide a certain service. They put it into buckets. I mean, we have a report this big, which is still in draft form. I understand we're still working through some things there. But why are we looking to pay them an additional $7,600 to put it into smaller buckets and do things which, to be completely honest, seem like they could be things that the director of facilities should be able to do? And we have Mr. Dorn's not here this evening to speak to it, but he speaks of his professional ability. This is exactly up his alley. Is this not something that a board member could help with? Mr. Phillips has been on the property committee for years up until this year. I hate to spend more money for something which, we have the information. Let's let the administration do it. If board members need to help. I mean, I don't see the need to do this. So if you could respond.
So I hear what you're saying, and I want you to know that we met the day of the work session. When I say we, representatives of AEM, Mr. Dorn and Mr. Fetz and myself, and we went through the draft document and we talked about how best, and this was actually as a follow-up to two previous property committee meetings that were designed to have a meeting occur so that we could define the parameters around how we would best chunk almost $100 million of potential projects into some workable groupings. And so while there's prioritization, there's also categorization. And the conversation in the property committee meetings, as well as at the meeting on last Tuesday, was centered around making sure that we are able to look at how we might be able to tackle not only the projects, but the funding of the projects. So as we package them together in items that are going between 0 to 12 months, so what do we need to do in the first 12 months once we, finalize the assessment? What work needs to get done then? What work needs to get done between years 1 and 3? And what work needs to get done between 3 and 5, and anything beyond 5 years? The idea being that it's going to be really challenging for us as a district to encumber or work with this without having an idea how to kind of chip away at something that apparently took a number of years to develop. And so while it may be true that Mr. Fretz and possibly even some board members could come to the table and have a discussion and kind of work through this, I believe that it's critical for us as a budgeting matter, a matter to prepare our budget not only for this upcoming year, but to get their expertise, from the group that actually did all the site work and review, to put it in the categories that we ask, so that we can use it as a mechanism as part of the budgetary process. My fear is that by not using them and having the deadline to be completed by the end of August, and allowing that to go forward in the September 12th Property Committee meeting, we will lose valuable time in the budget process and lose an opportunity to tackle some of these matters. So that's why I think we need to do it. That was, I hope that gets you your...
I can add to it maybe. Prior to Mark Fretz coming on, we had a facilities director for 20 years or nearly 20 years. And the methodologies of that director over those 20 years proposed certain things the way the district was ran and handled. Mark Fretz came in. One of the things with Mark coming in, not knowing 20 years of the buildings and where things were at, and it came down to the value of his time as far as his salary, where we wanted him working, and having someone come in and professionally lay things out, both on capital improvements and prioritizing what needs to be done now, months from now, year, 5 years, and really set it up that he just had to facilitate their directives. Because when he came, it was very hard to make him own everything that's going on with the buildings that we have and the capital improvements and get everything organized. So, even when we did the field project, that was something that I wasn't in agreement with him handling that part instead of getting an owner's rep, because here you have a guy that has a job that for 12 months out of the year, he has certain tasks to do. Now you're asking him to do additional tasks. So that means he's taking time away from somewhere. So this was laying out the whole district to him and giving him a blueprint on getting things done.
So he was basically the new kid on the block and really didn't know where all the warts and Band-Aids were of the district, right?
Right, and it helps with us with the capital improvements too, sure. and getting someone to say, hey, these are your major concerns, and we're getting an opinion rather than our director telling us. And he might overlook something because he's busy doing other things. So it's...
The one question I had is, related to the process. Was this discussed with Scott as head of the property committee to spend this money, and did he feel that it was appropriate?
So we made the, we were not able to get this before the property committee because we did not have a meeting, so that's accurate. But as the chairman of the property committee, he was at the table. We knew what the deliverables were. We were waiting on the quote. I had not had an opportunity to speak with him regarding the dollar amount.
But in theory, he thought that it was appropriate to have this company
Yes.
take care of that? Okay. As long as there's some type of process of, interacting with him as head of the property committee. All right. So any other comments related to that?
I also shared Jim's concern about needing an owner's rep when we started the field project. In addition to that, we had the project of the ESCO project, which was also consumed time of Mark Fretz. And both of those projects have gone by, and it would seem to me that he would have a fair amount of time that is available to address these significant things that will be part of what he needs to do for the rest of the years that he's here. And how better to know that than to actually do this kind of project himself.
Well, for starters, as a member of the property committee, I did not realize that this meeting was taking place with AEM. I know we had discussed having the meeting, but as far as extending the invitation and trying to coordinate with the other members of the property committee, that did not happen. So that's a concern, particularly in light of the fact that Mr. Dorn is not here this evening. Had I known that he wasn't going to be here tonight, had I known about the meeting last week, I could have attended. We would have had a little bit more communication in all of this. That being said, I still am not clear on why it is that we need AEM to do this report. As a director of facilities, my impression, my understanding of the basic job description would be that Mr. Fretz should be able to handle the maintenance of these buildings. And he's obviously not the one person who's going to be doing the maintenance of these buildings, but if he can't take that report and distill it down to priorities of what work needs to be done, you don't need to know the ins and the outs of the buildings to do that. That's what the report does. My feeling is that this is something that should absolutely be within the scope of his abilities and something that his position should allow the time to do. If he can't, because of other responsibilities and priorities, take care of prioritizing the work that needs to be done on our buildings, then maybe we need to look at what those competing responsibilities are, because to me, this should be the essence of what his job entails.
I just like that. Two things. One is, as far as having AEM come in and doing something like this, if we do have a change out of facilities directors through a course of time, just like we're having with the business manager, at least there's something in place that the next person can take the torch and move forward. That's just one thing. The other is, I'd like, I hate to say this time-wise, but if we could table this and have Scott and the property committee get together sooner than later and discuss this proposal and, get it, I just feel more comfortable hearing it from him.
Yeah, I think it's important that the board and the public know that the reason why the entire property committee was not involved in the meeting was because they can't. It would have to be an open public meeting because it was discussion of a matter related to the property committee, and therefore more than one member couldn't attend. So at a meeting of the property committee, it was agreed that Scott would attend the meeting, being the chair, We scheduled an original date probably about a month ago, and that date fell through. We then went to this other date last Tuesday, and we were fortunate enough to have the meeting. Now, the second problem is that we certainly can table this, but that's not my recommendation. My recommendation for you this evening is to approve this. And the reason is that while certainly Mr. Fretz can go ahead and do the work, and I can direct him to do that, there's a high likelihood during the busiest time of his year, during the summer months, when all the projects are to get done before the start of school year, all the cleaning that needs to get done. And we're not done with the field project yet, okay? And we have matters of stormwater management that we need to address. We're looking months out before he can get this tackled. And while Mark Fretz might know the facilities, and he may know how to prioritize, I didn't hire Mark Fretz to be a technology wizard and be able to put this in an Excel spreadsheet so that it will help us manage these projects going forward. And so I would have to pull other resources in. I could pull my technology department in. But I'm recommending that for $7,600, that we get the information we need so that we can start budgeting properly on some of these items by our beginning budgetary process in October. It gives you, as a board, an opportunity to see, once we finalize this report, it gives you the opportunity to see those things that really need to be priority and that need to be addressed within 0 to 12 months. Your focus will then be on how do we pay for those things. You've already seen the report. If you didn't read it word for word, you should. And secondly, you should know that there's some matters in here that really have to be addressed. And I would like to have AEM get us to a point where we can get this done sooner rather than later, because there are some matters in here that, quite frankly, we should be addressing. So that's my recommendation this evening. Certainly, I understand your concerns, but I want you to know that I think this is an important step for the future of addressing our facilities.
I don't want to see us hold up this process. I understand that this is kind of a domino effect, and if we don't approve this tonight, it has the potential to impact, us passing a budget next spring. I mean, I understand there's a lot of moving parts here, and we need to keep things moving. My concern is that we got this draft report from AEM in April. I believe that Mr. Fretz, the Director of Facilities, should have been tasked or more closely involved from the onset, from the date that we received the report, so that we would have his input. If he had started on the process at that time, then maybe we would still be on track for this timeline. I guess another further question I have is, what is his role in what's being outlined by AEM? Will he be working with them on this so that he is knowledgeable and aware of what work needs to be done? Will he be giving his input? Where does he fit into all of this?
That was a very good question, and that was our major concerns, that when we put the Excel program together, we're going to train him on how to utilize that so that on an annual basis, once a project's completed and documented inside this program, so we're going to be able to know when we put bids out, who bid, what were the dollar amounts associated with it, all sorts of relevant information to managing these types of projects and going back historically. He'll be able to then carry those projects forward that didn't get completed in a given time period, so that they now become a part of our conversation for the next budget cycle and so forth. So training on the use of the tool is going to be important. But in addition to that, he's certainly going to be involved, as well as the property committee is going to be involved in looking at AEM's work and discussing that work along with Mr. Fretz's input. So I think this doesn't say that once they give us a recommendation that we just need to consider it blindly. We're going to have some discussions, and we need to do that. That's why it needs to come before us at the September 12th meeting.
Dave, I'll accept your recommendation on it, and I have no problem moving forward with it. Just come September, please, I'd like to hear an update and Scott and Mark Frett's thoughts on it.
Couple of comments. It is, I guess I'd like to, I am not handy. I have no idea. I can't barely hit my pen correctly here. So I have no idea from a perspective of what is a priority perspective. However, the report does tell us what is immediate need. It does tell us the approximate cost. It does tell us it's roofing related. You can group things together just straight out of the report. So I do not see $7,600 worth of work here, to be honest. And without Scott at least giving a once over on the cost, I have trouble voting for this myself. It does delay us in all the bigger issues from a financial, and I honestly probably should have spent a little more time looking at this before today to talk to you directly, Dr. Zerbe, but I really have trouble at this point because the report sort of tees it up. The other comment I would make is we screwed up writing our RFP. For them not to deliver this as is, this is like frosting on a fairly expensive project. So maybe that's the way the game works. If you don't ask for it, they don't give you it, you go back and they get more money out of it. But the reality is we're not asking for much in this request. And it's $7,600, and now we're making decisions based on timeline, not based on the right use of the cost. Thanks.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that I believe the initial report was $25,000, maybe 20, either one. If I paid for anything that much money in my own home, I would have the person come back and finish it up. So that's a concern for me. My other concern, and this is a no disregard to Mr. Fratz, I do realize how busy they are right now, because I get that email usually because I can't go in my classroom until a certain time because I know how busy everybody is getting the facilities ready over the summer. But I'm wondering how much time Mr. Fratz spends out working in the facilities versus behind the desk, because he is a director of facilities. And I know you've always spoke very highly that he's out, you hired him because he can go and do, and he doesn't just sit behind a desk. But when you need a director of facilities, and I know these are big money things we're going to be talking about in the next couple coming years, and it's important, but between AEM not having it in the report and Mr. Fratz not being able to do it for whatever reason, that's a concern.
Yeah, just a couple of follow-up points. I agree with a lot of what Paul said. And basically, if you look at this, there's 6 bullets here, but there's 4 deliverables that we're looking for. And we basically have the first 3. I mean, we've had this report since April, so May, June, and July. It's not like we just got this. So we've had this. A breakdown of priorities documented by each facility. We have that. Now we have it in 0 to 5 years. But they even go specifically in this report, if you read it through, they say address immediately. Well, I would think that would be in the 0 to 12 months, or address in the next 5 years. I mean, it might not be in the exact language that we want it here, but then to identify the areas, code and life safety, infrastructure, maintenance, all you have to do is read each one and make a notation next to it. I mean, I feel like we're paying for things that if we had just spent the proper time reviewing the report that they already gave us, I mean, to me, this makes 0 sense. And you mentioned something in terms of helping us with the budget and helping us figuring out, how much this is going to cost and if we do different things. That's not a deliverable on here. So again, if that's what we're hoping to get out of this, we should have it as a bullet on here to make sure that we're getting what we want out of that. I mean, they gave us dollar amounts already. I don't know, again, what we're looking for. Maybe if we package certain things together, but if we're looking for it, it needs to be included in here. And I would think who came up with the buckets, I guess would be my question. I keep using the word buckets, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 plus. So if we wanted this as the specifics, would they really charge more to say okay, put it in 0 to 12, 12 to 24? I mean, did anybody go back to just see if there's minor things that could be tweaked in the report? I mean, I think that's why Scott wanted draft mark to this and not final, because there's things you're going to want to tweak and change. I wouldn't think that that would be an increase in the total amount of cost to this project. So that's what I have to say.
Any other comment? The one thing I'd like to think about, Dr. Serby, is however we come to a priority list out of all this, and it's a multi-year priority list, we're going to have a lot of projects where there are varying sizes. So, Jim's comment about the Fields project, and we should have gotten some outside help with managing that. We've heard that from other people on a project of that size. And some of these projects are going to be that big. So I think moving forward, however we get to a prioritization list and say, here's what we're doing in this time period, I think we need to put some thought into, how much work or how big is the project before we really need to get some outside help with managing the projects. Obviously, if it's a small project, we don't need help, but if we have some projects that are multi-year, very significant. So there's going to be a wide range, and we kind of need to put some thought into where we can handle it with our internal people and where we need some outside help with managing it. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? All those against? Nay? Okay. So the motion does not carry. All those in yeah. So all those in favor was just Jim Phillips, and all those against were Andrea, Brenda, Mike, myself, Kim, and Paul. All right. Dates for board member calendars. Let's get that July 26th. August 15th is a policy committee. August 16th is a board work session. And August 23rd is the board meeting. Any old business? Okay. Under new business, there's two items that I had added. The PSBA voting delegates. There's going to be a meeting coming up in October, and we typically send at least one delegate to go to the voting meeting. This year it's part of a Saturday, October 15th. We don't need to make a decision tonight, but if anybody's interested in being the delegate and going to that, please let me know. I might actually consider going. Maybe, Susanna, you want to go to Hershey Park that day? So we'll get that figured out. The other item we have listed is the superintendent's contract. Not a lot of detail here. We just wanted to let you be informed that Dr. Zerby's in the last year of your existing contract, and we're working on a new contract, 3 years in length, that we'll be working through the details and approving at a future, or voting on at a future board meeting. Okay. Now it's time for courtesy of the floor.
If I could add just one more
that's right.
Business. I'm going to read a motion as such, to consider upon the district solicitor's recommendation to file an assessment appeal for the 2017 tax year upon the property located at 3200 Ridge Pike, further identified as tax parcel number 43-00-11611-001. Such authorization includes the filing of an appeal before the Board of Assessments and any needed subsequent action to bring the appeal to disposition or settlement.
It wasn't on the agenda. It was something that just came to our attention since the agenda posted, so we do need to take public comment on that. Anybody has any public comment on it?
Is
another description of the property? Is it like a gas station or an apartment building?
Or is it the old Kmart shopping center?
Yeah. So if you Google the address, it's the old Kmart, Gennardi's Shopping Center.
As soon as you say that, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a drive-in, fully climate-controlled, self-storage facility, which is a portion.
Okay, the storage, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the old
All right.
shopping center.
So any public comment on that? Okay, may I have a motion to approve that?
Can we just clarify that the only reason that this is on the agenda and we're voting on it now is because it just came to our attention and it's a time-sensitive matter, just for the sake of the public, so it's not like
Yeah,
we're just
I did-
choosing to do this now.
Yeah, I
because we
did say
have
it
to.
just came to our attention. The part I didn't say was that it's time sensitive. So in order to get the appeal in, we have to vote before the next board meeting. So that's why we're kind of shoving it through at this time. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out, Kim. May I have a motion to approve? Second. Any comment from the board? All those in favor? Against? Okay. It passes with the one nay, Jim, being Jim. Okay. Now, any other new business? All right, let's open it up to courtesy of the floor. Any comments from anybody? Susanna Boardman, you want to come up and address the board?
I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor? Thank you, everybody.